Hey, this is Pascal Mansell again for Vanguard Global LLC, and I am teaching you about our program $30,000 to $300,000 in business lines of credit. So hopefully you watched and listened to everything in video one. This is video two, which is how to go after business credit. So in this video, I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into how you should go about getting business credit. So the first thing that you have to understand is to make this happen, you need to have a legal business entity. So meaning you're going to have either a corporation or an LLC. And if you're part of our program, which you should be if you're watching this video, then we will, if you do not have a corporation or LLC, obviously we will create one for you. The other thing that you're going to have is a FICO score, preferably 700 plus. Okay. I like to really be in the 720s and above, but if we can get you at least to a 700 FICO score, we're in the game. So what I want to talk about in this particular video is once again is how to go after the business credit. So what you can always do, and if you're a part of this program, we're going to give you a list of institutions that I think you should go after. But just for this example in this video, all I've done is I've gone to comparecards.com and I just picked a card, which in this case is the Bank of America card. Now I've already opened up the application and I'm going to go over this application with you. Bank of America business credit cards are actually one of the hardest ones to get. Bank of America in general is, they're a little difficult. So if you have really good credit and everything is lined up as it's supposed to be, you'll be able to get credit from Bank of America. But once again, you really need to be in the 700 plus club, preferably in the 725 or so club or better. And we're talking about your bottom score needs to be at least 700, your mid score 725, and obviously your higher score, whatever it is, but 725 and above. So we're going to start with this application because this is extremely important. I want to make sure we have a clear understanding of this. So here's the online application, which is what I suggest that you do. And this is a key point that I'm about to go over with you. And I'm going to illustrate that a little bit greater in another video. All right. But the key point that I'm going to go over with you is once we have your credit looking like it should look, once your credit is looking like it should look, in other words, 700 plus, then what I would suggest that you do is you're going to go after 2 or 3 cards all at one time. And if your credit score is really good and strong, then I'm going to suggest that you go after 3 or 4 cards all at one time, right? You're going to literally do them back to back to back to back. And the reason being is because we do that so that you're running your credit so fast that it doesn't give the next institution that you go to, the next credit card that you're applying for, a chance to post that inquiry to your credit file, right? And so it's really a very strategic way of doing this. And so I want you to keep that in your mind through all this lesson. I'm going to give you key points that I really need you to keep in mind, because when you're ready to move forward, you're going to really want to just, basically kick ass and move forward and get as much capital as you possibly can in the shortest period of time so that you can, develop your business. So anyways, with this application, obviously, once you have your corporation or LLC set up, you're just simply going to, put that in the slot where they ask. In this particular instance, I'm just using Vanguard Global Business Services, Inc. And then obviously they're going to ask you, for that, you place that in there. The business name on the card. Um, we're going to shorten this a bit, actually. Okay, so on the card, we're just going to put um, Vanguard Business Serve, abbreviation for services. Now, these parts here, it's pretty simple, right? Excuse me. Uh, does your business have doing business under DBA? No, you're not doing business under DBA, which is just stands for doing business as. So a lot of people for their personal selves will go down to their local county and they'll set up a DBA, which is doing business as, which is fine, right? But when you're trying to do real business and make real things happen and you're trying to go after money, obviously instead of just doing a DBA, you want to have a corporation. And then what they're talking about in this particular instance, moreover, is that a lot of people that will set up a corporation, then they will subsequently set up DBAs underneath that corporation. So you'll have your parent corporation. In this case, we're going to call it Vanguard Business Services. And then under that, you might have Vanguard Accounting Services. And then you might have another DBA that says Vanguard Bookkeeping Services. I don't know. But you can have multiply different things. And the reason people do that is because you'll have your corporation and then you'll have your DBAs under your corporation. You're doing business as, which that way you can have multiple DBAs, and they're all protected ultimately by the corporation. So what I like is, and the reason I use a name like Vanguard, even for our personal business, is because I like eclectic names. I like names that don't say what your business is about, because that way you can change your business on a dime, right? You can spin your business around. You can spin whatever you're doing around. Like with our business, we have multiple services that we offer under our business. So our business, once again, is Vanguard Global LLC. And so the word Vanguard simply means a front leader, right? A leader in the forefront. So with Vanguard, what does that mean? I mean, other than a leader in the forefront, a person, a scout, or something that goes ahead of the pack. Other than that, what does it mean in the business world? Absolutely nothing. But if our name were Pete's Accounting Service, then that means I'm in the accounting business, right? Or if it's Vanguard Construction, well, I've just told the world I'm in the construction business, and that's what I'm going to have to be in. But if your name is Vanguard Global LLC or Next Level LLC, or you know something of that nature, you can literally change and move with the times, as opposed to being stuck in a business that you may no longer want to be in. I know a lot of people that have had different businesses, and that business might be called for instance, I knew of someone who had a business that was in home remodeling, and they wanted to completely get out of that business, and they had a long-term corporation. And the problem is that you know they felt trapped because their business was XYZ, remodeling. And so what do you do? So now you're in the real estate game. In other words, they wanted to become a broker and start flipping properties and all this other stuff. What do you do? So if you're XYZ remodeling, how do you use that for your real estate business? You can't. You know, I mean, technically, obviously, you could, but it just doesn't go together. So you're going to end up starting from scratch. So that's why, in the very beginning, you want to think through what you're doing. Even using your own name is not a bad thing. You should be confident about that, So if your name is, John Smith, and you say John Smith Inc. or John Smith LLC, well, John Smith can literally do anything that John Smith wants to. You're not stuck in a specific field so think about these things. Very, very important. So let's move on. Here, obviously it's asking if we have a DBA. At this stage of the game, we want to just say no, right? They're going to ask you for your address. Now, this is another important fact, that when you're going after business lines of credit and the manner in which we're doing it, it's not important to have a external address, right? So if we were working with purely corporate credit, it's important to have an external address that you're at. It's important to have a business phone number, all those type of things, because you're saying that this is the corporate entity, and so therefore you need to make it look like a corporate entity and have the address, a business address of some sort, to have a business phone number of some sort. Everything needs to reflect that this is a true corporate entity. But when you're dealing with business lines of credit, since you are the guarantor, that is the most important factor. And so you have to have a business entity, but that is not the most important factor, because whether they grant you money or not, whether they grant you a credit card or a loan, it's being done under your social, under your credit file. So you're excluding all that other BS. It's not a necessity. As a matter of fact, when you're going after business lines of credit, you could have a corporation or an LLC that's literally a week old, because they don't care about that. They want to know that you're in business, and so therefore you have that corporation or LLC. But if that corporation or LLC is a day, a week, or a month old, it literally does not matter, because you are what they're looking at. They're not going to base whether they give you money on the business. They're basing whether they give you money for your business on your good standing, not the business's good standing. Okay, so that's really important. So let's move on. So in here, if you're using your home address, that's okay in business lines of credit, because all you're doing is you're just saying, hey, my business is a home-based business. And especially in these days and times, it's a common thing. It's becoming more and more common with the internet being what it is. All right, so you can work from home. So anyways, this is just a made-up address, obviously. And you see, I just, 1277 Moneybank Street, Riverside, California, 92503. And, your country of origin, it's going to be the United States if you're obviously based here in the United States. Now, your business phone number here, you have a choice. You can set up a business phone number in your home. And how I would suggest you do that is with something like Vonage. Excuse me. When you use Vonage, or some other service similar to that, it's a good look, right? Because with Vonage, they're going to give you this voice over IP number, and it's going to be a business line. You can list it with 411 and all that other stuff. But is it necessary? No. Technically speaking, you can use your cell phone as your business line when you are going after business lines of credit cards, right? So it is a good thing if you want to and you can afford to spend the extra dollars and get a Vonage line. And the magic about Vonage is that you're able to forward any calls that come to your Vonage number directly to your cell phone anyway. But it is, it's a good look, I guess, if you have that separation, but it's not a necessity. So let's move on a little bit further. Is the business address different than your physical address? One, so on. So listen, once again, we go back to that same thing. The business address and your home address can be the same. So therefore, it's going to have the same mailing address. Business lines of credit, you don't. It just doesn't require a lot. Here, we're going to put in our tax ID number. So for those of you who already have a corporation set up and already have your tax ID number, you know, golden, you're golden. You can just, you know, put it in, right? But for those of you who are in the program and do not have a corporation or do not have, you know, your tax ID number set up, obviously we will create those things for you, which is part of the program. What we do is our other part of our company, the other part of Vanguard Global LLC.com is, you know, obviously where we do our incorporations and business consulting. So with Vanguard Global LLC.com, you know, we'll take care of your corporation setup, and obviously your tax ID number is part of the service, part of the fee you've paid, as well as even if your credit is crappy, is in the dumpster, you know, as you should know if you're watching this video, we will also take care of your credit, help you, you know, clean it up and reestablish it to get you to that 700 plus FICO score. So let's move on. Once again, now we're down here to, you know, country of formation, obviously, it's the United States. Now, I will tell you that if you are out of the country, there are things that we can do so that you can get credit. It's a bit more tricky, but there are things that can happen. Same thing. So, state of formation. You always want to form your corporation or LLC within the state you live. You know, people like to think that they need to run and form a corporation in someplace like Nevada or Wyoming or Delaware. And no, 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 no. You form the corporation or, you know, the legal business entity, LLC, within the state that you live, not Wyoming, Nevada, or Delaware. It's especially in these days and times, you want control, you know, and you want everything to come directly to you as opposed to being sent to a third party, and that third party has to subsequently send things back to you via mail. The fees are, you know, become outrageous. It's just not worth it. So please don't do that. And it also is a better look for you when you're everything is based in your home state, right? Everything should be based in your home state. So let's move on. It's going to ask you for the type of business structure. They always, you know, do, and you're going to either choose corporation because that's what you're going to have, or a uh, a limited liability company, which is an LLC. Okay, and so I'm a fan, quite frankly, of corporations over LLCs, even though, you know, one of our primary businesses is an LLC. But I'm a fan of corporations. So they are typically always going to ask S or C corp. Now let me explain the difference between an S and a C corp for you. So a C corp and is your standard corporation, right? It's your standard closed corporation. An S corp is that very same C corp with the filing of some paperwork with the IRS to make that corporation, make your corporation an S corp, and an S corp in effect is a pass-through corporation, meaning that instead of having dual taxation, in other words, you're getting taxed on the income of the corporation, and then you're also getting taxed on your income. With an S corp, you get singular taxation because every dime passes through the corporation directly to you, right? So A lot of people like that, um, because that way it's less work. A lot of I have found over time that a lot of accountants like it, uh, because they're lazy, right? In my opinion, it's stupid, right? So why would you want to have this corporate entity which gives you all this protection and separates you from the business, okay? And then have the tax portion of it, right? So any monies that come in go directly from, what are we using here? Vanguard, whatever it's called, going directly through that, directly to you as an individual. So I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney, I'm none of those things. But everything that I've ever learned about, dealing with this type of stuff, it tells me that I want that separation. I want my corporation to be my corporation. I don't want anything to do with its taxes. I don't, none of that stuff. I want to keep me completely separate, because when you have an S corp where it's a pass through, let's say you make, I don't know, let's call it $150,000. Well, that $150,000 gets passed through directly to you. They might be writing the check to Vanguard, but the monies hit that account, but then they are, as far as the government's concerned, IRS, that money is automatically becoming your money. I don't want that. I want it such that when that money hits the account, this $150,000 over the course of a year, I want that money to belong to the corporation. And then, because the corporations get super duper tax benefits. And at the time of this recording, under the Trump administration, corporations are killing it, right? And they're going to get even more if they can figure it out. Corporations are going to get even more tax breaks. So why would I want that money coming to me where I'm going to be paying a higher tax than what my corporation is? And more importantly, if the money stops with the corporation and then I get a small wage, just a meager wage out of that $150,000, well, my tax position, my personal tax position is going to be very low. But see, the smart thing of this, in my opinion, is that under your corporation, with that $150,000 they made, you can help reduce the tax burden of that corporation even more, because all of your gas, right? Because you're using your car and your what have you for business, obviously. So the gas you're burning is for business. So all of your gas you can write off underneath your corporation, right? Your lunches, your dinners, your this, your that. You have like a ton of different things that you can write off under your corporation that you as an individual aren't going to be able to write off so easily. So you want that. You want to separate yourself from your corporation. I hope I'm not going too fast or just running over things, but I'm just really wanting you all to understand the importance of this. Have your corporation be your corporation. And, obviously, you have to make the ultimate decision. But if you're going to do a corporation, just do a C corp. Be done. If you do an S corp, then everything changes. Your tax position changes. Use the corporation, because once again you're going to get greater tax benefit, and you're also going to be able to write off so much more under your corporation, under your C corp, right? And then when you pay yourself a wage, you're going to pay yourself a meager wage, because your expenses are reduced, right? I mean, I'm not trying to tell you to cheat the IRS or the government. I'm just telling you what's real. What's real is, if you are in business, then you have, from everything I understand and know, that you have every right to utilize that business for its, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. You have every right to take advantage of all of the tax benefits and breaks that that business offers. And then when it comes to you, when you have to get a wage, because if you're making a certain amount of money, they're not going to say, well, you're making all this money, but you're not, you're making 150 grand, but you're not taking any kind of salary. That's not going to look good. But your salary can be minimal, which means that, if you do have a tax burden on that salary or wage, then it's going to be minor, right? So use your corporation the best you can. So let me get off of that. Once again, I just prefer that you do a C corp, not a S corp. But you're grown, do what you want to do. Anyways, you're obviously your business is not publicly traded at this point, so you're just going to click no. Once again, the country where your business is operating in the United States, type of industry. So I'm big on services, and the reason why is because there are different times um, where some things are in favor and some things are not. So there was a point in time back in 2008, 9, 10, quite frankly, 11 and 12 probably, where if you said that you were in real estate in any way, shape, or form, whether it's, you were an underwriter doing loans, you were a realtor, whatever the case may be, you know, you weren't getting crap for as far as money, right? I mean, they'd give you some money if you had a fantastic FICO score, but they really wouldn't give you, what they would have given you in 2006, let's say, because some businesses are in favor and some aren't. And so I like to use, very broad, open things like services because services covers everything, right? So even when I'm creating a corporation for someone, um, and then we're subsequently doing their tax ID. What I always suggest that the client uses is business management. Because what does that mean? Business management is anything that you want it to be, right? Whether you're in the business yourself, or you're managing other businesses, or you're doing business development, whatever, it's all business management, right? You can have a construction company but you're still doing business management, because what does your corporation do? It does business management. You just happen to be managing a construction company. I like vague, other than specific things. So if you can be a little vague in your applications, but obviously you want vagueness with some oomph behind it. You don't want to get too vague, but just so that where there's no, where they don't penalize you for being in the wrong business at the wrong time, right? So I like services. You can once again, you can put whatever it is that you so desire, but for me, services covers a wide um, uh, array of things, and it just works. Okay. So, anyways, um, they're going to ask you about, once again, the industry, and I do business services, not elsewhere classified. There's two different levels or types of business services, but I like this one, not elsewhere classified. Now, when it comes to your income, okay, this is another alert. This is something that's extremely, extremely important. When it comes to income, we do what's referred to as future casting. So let's say that if I were to if I were just to remove this one in front of the 148,725, and I just said we do, right, $48,725. Well, They may give us some money because, if you have an excellent FICO score, they're going to give you some money, but they're not going to give you as much. And they're not going to give you as much because your income is stating or saying to them that you can't afford a $20,000 card, right? And because a $20,000 credit card is half of what you make virtually. So you always want to embellish, if you want to say that, or in what I consider, a lot of people say is embellishing. I call it future casting, and future casting is something that every real business does, right? It's what makes the stock market go up and down. Future casting is simply saying that you believe that you are going to do $148,725 or whatever that figure is that you want to use in annual income. Okay? That's all future casting is. So you don't want to get ridiculous, because if you get ridiculous, there is a slight possibility that they will say, "Well, prove it," right? And you don't want to ever have them ask you to prove it, because obviously you're not going to go out and create some bogus tax returns or anything stupid like that. So we want to keep it reasonable. I like figures like 137.5, 142, I like odd numbers, number one. I like to stay personally under $150,000. The reason being is because if you look out in the world, there are a lot of people that I'm sure that are making 150 grand. I mean, if you're in a state like California, where I'm at, um, you know, you can work at a city job and make 150 grand, 110, 120, 130. Quite frankly, uh, most of my family work, in with for various different cities here in the state, and all of them earn in excess of $100,000. So $100,000 is not out of the question. So you want to definitely um, have your income in excess of $100,000. If you if you're a person that has always put down on your applications in the past that you're making 20, $30,000 or something of that nature, then no, you're not going to want to jump up to 140 some odd thousand. You're going to want to start putting something in the nature of, that you're making 87,000, 92,000, 78,500. And the other thing that you're always going to want to do is you're always going to want to make sure that you're using odd numbers, because no one makes 150,000 even. No one makes $40,000 even. I've never run across anybody that has a tax return that says, "No, I made $40,000 even," right? It just doesn't happen. So you want to have, jumble up your figures a little bit, some odd and even numbers put together. And just remember, you always need to future cast. And let me give you a quick example, and I use this all the time, and it should help you think through this process a little better. So if you were filling out an application somewhere for credit, and it were January 1 of this year, if it were January 1 of this year, and last year, let's say that you made $56,000, okay? And it's January 1, remember that. So when they're asking you on that credit application, what is your annual income? You're going to put down whatever it is you did last year, which in truth, so you're going to put down $56,000, let's say. So, but in truth, that is not true. That is not your annual income for this year, because it's January 1. So when you put down that $56,000 that you made last year, you are doing what's referred to as future casting, right? You're assuming, based on what you did last year, that you are going to do the same thing. But the truth of the matter is, you could lose your job. And so, therefore, what you put on that application is just not true, because you're not going to make that $56,000 because you're unemployed. You could be injured. There's a wealth of things that can occur that would prevent you from making that $56,000. So, what I'm saying to you, if you're going to futurecast anyway, you need to futurecast upwards. Okay, especially in this process, because in this process we're going after funding so that you can truly make that $148,725, right? Because that funding that you're going after is going to help you establish your business, or build your business in a manner in which your income is going to exchange. I mean, your income is going to actually go up, period, right? So why not futurecast for what you really anticipate getting, which in my particular thought process should be in excess of $100,000, unless in recent applications you've been putting, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand. Then you don't want to, just jump up too high. But you do want to start telling this new story about, no, I'm making 98,000 a year, or whatever the case may be. So if I put 148 um, as gross annual sales, okay, so it's going to say year established. Now, this is something else that I want to go over with you. So the year established of your business, let's say that we set up a corporation for you, and that corporation was set up just last week, and you're starting this program, this coaching service that we're offering. You just started it, so we just set up your corporation or LLC, and it was set up literally just a week ago. Well, just because your legal business entity was set up a week ago, does that mean that your corporation, I'm sorry, does that mean that your business is only a week old? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Your business, like a lot of people's businesses, can be a year old, 2 years old, 10 years old, whatever the case may be. You can have a business that's been established for a very long time, and then finally come around to getting it incorporated or setting up your LLC. So think about that. The born on date, or the date that your corporation was established, or LLC was established, has absolutely nothing to do with the date you started your business. So what you're going to put down in this section here is just that. You're going to put down, let's say that you did start your business, I don't know, the day the corporation was born. What I would suggest is that you at least backdate it 2 or 3 years. 2 years is reasonable, right? So once again, even though you're just starting your business, I would suggest that you put at least 2 years of history. Okay? Because with 2 years of history, it's not like you got to come up with anything. One of the things about business lines of credit cards, which we're starting with, is that you don't have to prove anything to them unless your credit application looks a little wild, right? So that's why we want to keep everything within reason. So I would go back 2 years, and with your business. Now, if your business is truly 5 years old, 10 years old, and you just now incorporated, then I would put the 5 or 10 years. Okay, but if not, then go back 2 years. So, anyways, is this business a non-operating entity? What they're asking, when they're asking, is the business a non-operating entity, is they're just simply asking, is this business like your umbrella corporation? So, what a lot of people do, is they will have, let's say, a corporation that does nothing, right? But underneath that corporation, they will have multiple other corporations, or LLCs, or even DBAs that are out there, doing all the work. where this business, this particular entity, does nothing, because that way it keeps it from getting sued, right? So that business, you know, this let's say if Vanguard, this business, was a non-operating business, but I owned all of the assets of, my corporation one and corporation two and corporation three. So what would happen under those circumstances is, let's say that corporation one were sued by someone. Well, if they sued that corporation, they came after the assets of that corporation, what they would find is that Vanguard owns those assets. Okay, those assets are being held, and Vanguard basically holds those assets, and as like a lien holder basically. So a good way to think about it is this: if you bought a brand new car and you're driving that car around, and uh, you get into an accident, well, your car might be financed, or the lien holder on that car might be Ford Credit. So Ford Credit actually is the owner of that asset, that car that you're driving. But Ford Credit can't be sued for owning those assets. You can be sued, right? And your insurance can be sued, but the asset holder, the person who technically owns that vehicle, cannot be sued, right? So you are listed on the vehicle, basically the vehicle operating agreement, which is what you're going to get from the DMV, which is going to show you, as the quote unquote owner of that car. But technically speaking, Ford Motor Credit owns the car. That's why they have the right to come and snatch that car away from you if you don't make your payments. So it's the same thing with this corporation setup. And that's what they're asking here basically. Is it a non operating entity? Oh, and one other thing, a lot of people do this when they have money and they have, let's say, a trust fund or something of that nature. Well, the trust fund might own this corporation, and then under that, it'll have all these other assets like property and what have you. So if someone slips and falls out of property, then yeah, you can sue the insurance and all that good stuff with the property. But if you try to go and lay claim to that property in some way, shape, or form, you're not going to be able to, because the lien holder, once again, which in this particular scenario would be the trust, they actually own the asset. So you can sue everything else, but you can't sue them and subsequently take that asset away. So let me move on a little bit faster here. All of this stuff here, it's kind of common sense. You always want to say that you're more than 50% ownership. Does the business have any non U.S. business activity? No. Is the business operating a charity or non-governmental organization? And the answer to this is going to be no. So basically, these things here, it's just no, right? Is the business classified as an IRS, as a nonprofit? The answer to that is no. When you're going after money, you can do it under a nonprofit, but you really don't want to, and the banks and what have you don't want you to do that either, because they they want to deal with businesses that are that are out trying to make money in the world, right? So well, let me see, where was I at here? Oh, I'm a little ahead of myself. So anyways, it's pretty common sense stuff, but I just want to make sure we go over this stuff really quick. um let's see. Obviously, things like gambling, you know, anything that requires federal licensing, you just want to say no, right? It's just better to say no. Thing Gambling, selling alcohol, tobacco, any of those things, you should always just know, right? Um, when it asks you, for your personal information, you're obviously, this is hugely important. You're going to put in all your personal information. This is just a name I made up. You're going to want to make yourself president. That's what I prefer, is president or CEO, CFO. Which CFO is chief financial operator. CEO is CEO, right? So chief executive officer, COO is chief operating officer. But I like president because it's just clean and simple. Then they're simply going to ask you for the name that you want to put on the card. Boom. You have to abbreviate here because it only allows so many characters. Let's see. Obviously, this is something that is the residential address the same as the business address? In this case, yes, right? Because we're keeping it simple. We're saying we're working our corporation out of our home. Keep it simple. They're going to ask you for a mailing address. Don't do that. Just keep it simple. Have everything sent to the same address. It's going to ask you for your phone number. You're going to put in your email. Now, this is something I'm going to go over with you later, but you always want a professional email. You don't want to have a Gmail or a Yahoo or a Ymail or Hotmail or any of this other crap. When you pick your business name, you're going to go to GoDaddy and you're going to buy that domain name. That's important. And then you're going to pay for an email service with that domain name. So, like in our case, it's Vanguard Global LLC. So, for me, I just simply put Pascal at Vanguard Global LLC. And you're going to want to do that because you're saying you're in business. And so, you want to have your business email. Very important, in my opinion. Um, Obviously, you're going to click U.S. citizen if you're a U.S. citizen. And then they're going to ask for your social security number because, once again, you are going to be the guarantor. Let's see. All this other stuff, once again, it's very simple. Now, down here, when it asks for the household income, okay, I always like to lower it a bit from the amount of the income for the business overall. So as you saw up here, I put whatever it is. Let's see, 148,725. So I'm saying that's the business's income, and then but my own personal income from that business. Let's find it. Let's find it. Is where am I at? Is $98,645, right? So obviously, if I can make this personal income, um, 114,360 bucks, whatever, that's kind of it's kind of up to you what you want to do, but you don't want it exactly, obviously, what your business income is. You want it to be slightly less because there are expenses out of that business income. Whatever those expenses might be, you want that to be shown out of there. So let's put 113,425, okay, as income. Source of income is employment. Obviously, they're going to give you a roster of choices. You're just going to put employment. You're going to put different companies ask different things or make different suggestions. You can just put executive because you're obviously the executive of your company, and then you can go on and you can put whether you rent or own. Put whatever your monthly payment is on that. Let's see, percentage of ownership, very important. Um, if you're doing all this by yourself, you're going to put 100%. If you have a partner or two, then you're going to want to make sure that you put, your percentage, make it, 50%, 40%. If you have two other people involved in the business, then each one of you are going to be, 33 and a third, whatever the case may be. And then that's it. you're the controlling manager, if that's what your duties are, that's what you're going to say, obviously. And this is it. Okay, so now we're just at the stage of finishing up. I know this was a long video, but I really felt that it was important to go over these things with you. um, so let's rock and roll. Once again, if you're a member of our program, which you should be if you're watching this video, if you don't have a corporation, obviously we at Vanguard Global LLC .com will set up your corporation for you, and also work with you setting up your tax ID number. If you are a member of this program and you have bad credit, that's not an issue. We will also help you with your credit, getting it straight, helping you rebuild your file, taking off the negatives and adding the positives to get you to that higher, to the high sixes and then 700 FICO score, so we can start doing some damage and making some money for you. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. This is Pascal Mansell for Vanguard Global LLC. And this is the $30,000 to $300,000 business program. And that's it. Catch you in the next video.